All right, so I'm chatting now to Mark Williams, who I'm going to talk to a lot about mental health, men's mental health, and particularly mental health in fathers. Thanks for chatting, Mark.
No, thank you. Thanks.
I kind of just want to chat a little bit about the importance of men of a certain age recognizing that it's okay to admit things. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Would you like me to take you back to my childhood and how?
If you're comfortable with it, Mark. Yeah, if you're comfortable.
Yeah. So my name's Mark Williams, and I'm from the mining community in Bridgend. Bridgend, unfortunately, had a lot of young suicides going back about 10 years ago. It was over 10 years ago now. We lost stigma around suicide. So there's another reason why I got into mental health, because I was a youth worker then, and still is. And so in childhood, obviously, my parents, fantastic parents, good family, and I didn't know at the time I had an undiagnosed disorder called ADHD. And there's a big myth around bad parenting. Trust me, my parents are fantastic. But what it is, in school, I had a lot of low self-esteem, unfortunately. I don't blame the teachers. But in 80s school, you'd have a clip across the year. You know, I couldn't keep still. I can't keep still now, I'm 46. But in school, there was so much going on, overwhelmed, hypersensitive. I wasn't concentrating because I wasn't really interested. You know, I get boredom. It was TV. I couldn't focus. You know, if I tell me about mental health or psychology, I look at things differently. You know, it gives me confidence, even in my writing. So a lot of low self-esteem. Luckily for me, my mother took me to a youth club at 8 and got into sport. And I was lucky I was pretty good at sport. I went on to become a British champion at 15, 16. Wow. And so my self-esteem leveled out a lot, because people are saying, oh, no, you are good enough. Don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough. And so, unfortunately, 1990, the rave scene started kicking in. And I've always used negative coping skills because that's all I've been taught. I was never taught in school, you know, CBT and mindfulness, meditation. You know, never taught those positive coping skills. And unfortunately, for 7 years, I started going down the rave scene and drugs, alcohol to excess, and took me down to that, you know, dealing with anxiety. I think a lot of it was during that time. But then really met my wife, Michelle, in 97. Totally changed my life. I went into sales, marketing, probably earning more money then than I am now. And a nice car, nice house, all that stuff. And then it was basically when my wife had a traumatic birth. I remember 22 hours labour, the doctors come rushing in and they said, Mr. Williams, your wife needs emergency C-section. We need to get into theatre quick. And it's the first time I actually had a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack ever before in my life, because I used to thought my wife and baby was going to die in a labour ward. And what I witnessed in a labour ward, and some of these fathers and grandparents have witnessed far worse than me, is PTSD. Because PTSD is an anxiety disorder, the witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. And, you know, I've worked in secure units since then. I've witnessed horrific things. Nothing worse thinking your wife and baby's going to die.
I obviously don't want to name and shame everybody. Everyone has their own experience, but I think there's this machismo pressure that we put on guys. I was interested in what you were saying about your sporting success that you had sort of as a teenager, and the fact that you needed all that praise and all that success just to balance out the anxiety that you're feeling. And it's mind-blowing, because you think about as 90% of lads that aren't brilliant at sport, they look at the person and you just assume they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. Their life is sorted. And what you don't realize is they need that success to balance out the anxieties they've got in other respects.
Definitely, you're right. You're so right. And as we know, a lot of men would suppress those feelings, because that's, you know, I'm the first generation not going, you know, go underground in the pits. So my grandfathers, uncles were all miners, you know. So, and you know, that sort of occupation, it was like, come on, let's get on with it. Let's go down the pub. So there was no conversation about mental health amongst my parents. And like you said, luckily for me, you know, I was always out. You know, I was always out playing. You know, and I was never indoors, so it was really hard for them to pick it up. But in school, and also like it interlinks with a lot of things like ADHD, anxiety, depression, OCD, dyslexia. You know, hypersensitive, loads of factors. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? So I managed that before I became a parent. Then you witnessed a traumatic birth, which my wife went through. Then my wife went on to a severe postnatal depression. So I was expected to be back in work in 2 weeks. Now my wife is in crisis team. You know, I mean, I gave up work, looked after her, no money, mortgage to pay, self-employed I was. Financial, I didn't initially bond with my son initially. That grew because I was home for 6 months. And then you start feeling depressed then because, you know, you think you're not good enough as a father, you're not good enough, or, you know, not providing for my family, you know, in this bubble it was, like a mental health, because the stigma back then, 15, 16 years ago, was far more than it is now. You know, it's getting better. It's a long way to go, but it is getting better. I was totally uneducated about mental health as well, even though I was suffering. You know, I thought I was having suicidal thoughts around about the 4 to 5 month mark after my son was born. Never made a plan to take my life, because it is a difference. But I was certainly on, 5 years afterwards, I was certainly on the way to making a plan. But going back, during that first year of fatherhood, and I'm so laid back, but I was, you know, punched the sofa, broke my hand. I was starting fights with bouncers, not because of the fact that, you know, I was going to beat them up. It's like when somebody's hitting you, it's now a form of like a self-harm, you know. So as well, so, you know, all this thing was going in my head. I just needed to take it away, you know. And
like a distraction. It's like something, to distract you from the thoughts.
Absolutely. And, you know, I didn't know any other way to do it. So alcohol became my friend again. And so, I mean, my mother-in-law came live with us, and which I'm still getting counselling for now. No, I'm joking. She's great. But I was lucky I had that family support. But I didn't tell my wife how I was feeling, or anyone, because I didn't want...
You don't want to be a burden to them.
I didn't want to, I didn't want to impact on her mental health in that first year, you know, fatherhood stuff. You know, so basically, 4 or 5 years later, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and lost my grandfather with dementia in weeks. And because I hadn't dealt with my own timeline of trauma or anxiety or everything, even the witnessing birth trauma, I was never diagnosed with PTSD, never, or postnatal depression, because there's a big myth about postnatal depression in fathers, which I'll explain. Because I was never screened or asked about my mental health. So that's what the work I'm doing now. So at that time in 2010, basically, I was physically fit then. I was, you know, kickboxing, done this over 35 Welsh champion, all this stuff. I was physically fit, but it was impact on my physical health as well. And then I had a full breakdown. I was in the car one day. It's like my body just shut down, and I had no choice. I was in community mental health services and put on medication and counselling.
When you were saying that, my mind was going back. I did auditions for the one of the roles we're casting for in the film on Saturday, and one of the guys came in and started talking about the Japanese transition of having 3 faces, and I found it really fascinating. It kind of reminds me of what you're saying here about how, as men particularly, we have the face that we put out in the public, we have the face that we show to our family, and then we have the face that we look at in the mirror.
Oh yeah, you just made a good point, because depression makes you the biggest liar as well. You know, I was avoiding situations, going up to walks, you know, sleep in the car all day, pretend to go work. Do you mean? And everyone knows me. I'm always laughing, joking, and stuff like that. So you got to put a space on all the time, because you don't let your guard down as well. So I found it harder, because I had to, you know, be looking, presenting, well, you know, happy. And I was starting to work in mental health services then after 2006-07, after I changed my career. And I still didn't get the help, because I thought if I went to the GP, it'd be on my records, and I would never get a job in mental health.
So what about community? Because the big thing about, obviously, Anonymous is the film, it being set in real time in a Alcoholics Anonymous a addiction recovery meeting.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I wanted to achieve when I wrote it in the way that I wrote it was to come away from the traditional Hollywood TV attitude towards addiction by glorifying the substance and selling the demonic side of the journey, the destruction of a human being as a result of this substance, which tends to be the way that we portray alcoholism, and rather than or addiction to any substance. rather than focus on that, what I wanted to do was focus on the heroes that exist in these rooms that are winning their fight and are recovering or have recovered, and almost making role models of these characters for the viewers, people are going to watch the film, to see and go, I want to be like that, rather than I don't want to be like this. The biggest thing I found in all my research and conversations like this one is how important that sense of community is. So in terms of your experience, when your mum made you go to a community group as early as that age,
yeah, definitely,
the subconscious positive impact that had on you.
Absolutely. I think we've been pretty lucky in the valleys, the South Wales valleys. There's a lot of community. You know, my wife's a youth worker now. My mother's behind the counter. My uncle's a DIY man. You know, we've got 3 families. You know, even in lockdown, we do quizzes in the street and things like that. So community is so important. I think it's not like it was years ago, but I think since lockdown, we've seen it's actually improved our community as well. People are engaging more, and not so much. So community is a massive part of it. I think I get purpose as well, serving my community as a football coach and giving something back as well. So I think in my recovery, that helped me finding out my purpose as well. For me, using my negative experience in my life, actually say, look, I've been where you are. I've been depressed. I've been, nearly took my life. I was I'd say a good couple of weeks from doing that. I think lucky for me, my body shut down really. And I've never been in that situation since 10 years, but I look after my mental health every day. But that's what people say. Look, it is a recovery, like alcohol or drugs, mental health. And, it's an ongoing process. You put the time and effort, as well. You will come out of this and give people hope, So I think lived experience is so powerful as well. And that a lot of people I've said in the past, there's people if we can change, people in the prison services have gone through loads of different addictions and all that, and then train them up to be counsellors, because lived experience has helped me to get the fathers actually open up, because I got more empathy towards the people who go through as well, and understanding.
So how does it work with obviously you have community groups that you set up that meet, but how has that shifted in lockdown?
Yeah, well, I'm mostly campaigning now, so I used to do the groups, but we did a walk and talk group in the valley. So unfortunately, we had a suicide in our valley just after Christmas. So we set up a walk and talk group, and we were just walking side by side. We were about 30 people, just talking about mental well-being. They have a chat and stuff, because I think men talk better side by side. I think a lot of the time. I think there's some research on that actually. So everything I've done, whether it's playing football together, it could be walk and talk, it could be just even having a chat in the car. When they can't get out of the car. So I think it's helped me. A community, it's been in my community, it's actually helped me during lockdown as well. So. But I think a lot of things are going on Zoom and Line, as well. So.
And I was talking to a guy yesterday on a podcast I was on in the States, and admittedly it's the States, it's slightly different, but he was saying that the two by far the two most common first contact conversations he's having with new patients are either to do with addiction or to do with domestic abuse, which are the two things that have just skyrocketed as a result of being trapped in since lockdown. And I guess for you, that's going to be huge, because they're two things that men are very much at the centre of.
Definitely. No, you're right. My wife actually is downstairs doing calls for Mental Health Wales, and so we've seen herself has seen people, so where she does the drop-in groups in a local church in Bridgend, and it's one of the places where they can engage, and but she's had to put it online, but not the same sort of response, because a lot of people can't use the internet as well, and Zoom and stuff like that. So the people that some people who go for depression, can just about get out of bed, in some cases, and so it's massive. I think it's I know in the work you just said about domestic violence, there's high rates of domestic violence during pregnancy as well, so there's fathers who I've spoken to recently during lockdown, they may get better bond attachment with their children because they're home more, but the pressures are different than it was 3 months ago. you know, financial uncertainty, all this anxiety. And then, like I said, a lot of these fathers then will turn to alcohol because their mind's totally racing all the time. They can't cope with it, you know. So I think in addiction, how we handle mental health and addiction together and say, okay, why is this man drinking more or taking drugs, or why, rather than, you know, my father always said to me, give me a good quote once. He said, never look down on anyone unless you're helping him up. And that's why I look at him, you know, have to look at the person and think, why, you know, unless you walked in that person's shoes, you don't really.
Right. So where can people find out about what you are?
Yeah. So I'm a founder of International Fathers Mental Health Day. So it's a work I'm doing is around the world really now, trying to get fathers to support it for their mental health, new dads. And have a look at Mark Williams, Fathers Mental Health. You Google that, and you can see all the stuff I'm doing as well. So we're trying to change policies in England, Wales, and then working with doctors around the world now. It's just say, look, if you support all parents for their mental health, there's far better outcomes for the whole family and a child's development. That's our message.
Wow.
Never take the attention away from them. It's about supporting all parents, regardless of gender.
It's a partnership. It's teamwork at the end of the day. Yeah. Instagram handles or Twitter handles or anything?
At Mark Williams FMH.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
And do look out for the teaser trailer. Teaser trailer's out for the movie. So.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I'll send you all the Instagram stuff that you can find it on anonymous_the_film. But I'll send it all over to you. But
that'd be great. Thanks
for chatting anyway.
Take care.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye.